everyone. Welcome to our first TOG chat in quite a while. I'm Robert Osborne, principal of the Osborne Group, and I'm joined by my colleague Laurel. Laurel, you can introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. Laurel McCombs, Senior Philanthropy Advisor with the Osborne Group. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, it's been a little while since we've done one of these, but I think we are recommitting to starting to do these a little bit more often, in addition to the other content that we have on the blog. And so today we wanted to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging as it applies to fundraising. And so this is a topic that obviously many organizations are thinking about and considering right now, and us so no less. And we've had the privilege of working on a number of different projects in this area, which we'll talk about. And so we thought, we've had a couple of years now to kind of think about what this all means and bring it together into something. And so we thought we would talk a little bit about that today, like where we've been, where we're going, and hopefully provide some guidance and some concrete things that you could do as an organization to think about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging as it applies to fundraising. So Laurel, why don't we kick it off and just kind of talk a little bit about how we got here in the first place, both the Osborne Group and the sector. So I think you and I have been talking about this for a long time, haven't we?
Yes, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of things swirling around DEIB and fundraising that a lot of us have thought about our entire careers, so 20 plus years in this industry, and things we've seen and things we've thought about that we haven't always had the space to talk about beyond kind of what's in our own heads. So I think it's been really exciting these last couple of years to have spaces to really talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, really, until pretty recently, I would say that it just wasn't a market for this. I mean, we would, it wasn't that people didn't care about diversity, equity, inclusion and belonging as it applied to their work. I think not-for-profits have been thinking about that for a while, but I think, at least for me, the case was, it usually happened around board work. I would sort of learn about a DEI consultant, and they were doing their thing, and I was also doing some board consulting, and maybe a client would think to put us together, maybe not, or I might request to talk to that particular person, or they may ask to talk to me, but there wasn't really a holistic approach specifically to fundraising and how DEIB might apply to fundraising until fairly recently. And it was really just, we would just kind of find out coincidentally whether or not an organization was doing any work, because it was sort of the DEIB work over here and there's fundraising over here, and nobody was kind of putting those two things together.
And it really felt like, with the murder of George Floyd, that there really was kind of a sea change that happened across the nonprofit sector. And I think it was, a combination of some groups like community-centric fundraising, who really took a much kind of higher profile, more active, proactive role in kind of voicing some of the issues that are going on in fundraising. But also, I think there were a lot of organizations at that time who took a more proactive stance as organizations in terms of putting out statements, in terms of support around Black Lives Matter and various issues that then got kind of feedback, and maybe I would even say backlash from some donors that they were not anticipating, that I think put some of these issues front and center around the role of DEIB and fundraising, and why this is something we actually have to talk about and actually have to address in our organizations. And I would say for us, really pointedly, I would kind of give a big shout out to Andy Robinson and Stephen Shattuck at Bloomerang for kind of initiating with us this idea of kind of, putting together like an actual webinar around how to take an anti-racist approach to fundraising. I think you and I had been talking about it a lot, but until Stephen, on Andy's recommendation, till Stephen contacted us and said, hey, would you do this for Bloomerang? I don't know that we had a platform yet beyond just our own musings. And so, I have to give a lot of credit to them for really kind of kicking off a real public interest in this. I think we had something like 800 people join that webinar, and it's then spurred a lot of interest. And we've since then done that webinar over the course of the last year and a half, probably, I don't know, 15, 20 times with various groups, AFP chapters and organizations. And I think that was really just in terms of us kind of having a platform and a space to really talk about this was really significant.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think prior to that, like maybe around Me Too, we started doing like difficult conversations and difficult situations, but it was very much a one-off kind of thing. It was definitely within a training context. And I think now it is very much a larger, much more holistic context about how does our department apply this work, as opposed to can you come in for a day and do some training. But yeah, that first training was a little fraught for us, because and we do kind of want to acknowledge that this is a challenging topic to talk about. It's fraught, and we're a Black owned firm, and Laurel and I are both BIPOC, and our other consultants are also BIPOC, and yet we were nervous about that, because we just weren't. It's tough. It's a tough thing to talk about. But we're glad that people are talking about it, and so, and we're glad that now that there's an opportunity for us to talk about this more, because we really do think this work is important. We do think it's really great and important that people are starting to think about this more comprehensively, are being brave and thinking about how this applies to them, and how they might think about it within their own organizations. Because it's pretty critical, and that's something that you and I have been talking about and chewing over, and because anyone who's familiar with the Osborne Group at all knows that we why are you doing something is really, really important, and so there's obviously a very strong moral case to this work, although I think it also is still important to have clarity about that why, but also, as fundraisers, why would we do this work?
Yeah, absolutely. And we were before this chat talking about a great article that Amir Bargo posted on LinkedIn today about kind of the intersectionality of the why of DEI work. And I think it really applies to fundraising too, that there has to be, yes, we all, on some level, I think a lot of people came to this work because they just felt like it was the right thing to do, right? There was a kind of a moral imperative to this work. But to your point, we're fundraisers. There has to be a bottom line business case for why we do this work. And you actually just wrote a great blog post that's up on the osborngroup.com around kind of what that business case is. And I think that we have to always be and there's a people reason too, right? There's a real case to be made for doing this work, because a lot of people in the nonprofit sector who are doing this work every day need to feel supported and need to feel like they are being heard, and that they're being made to be a priority within their organizations. And that's particularly true of BIPOC fundraisers. That's particularly true of BIPOC donors, right? I mean, so just everyone who's kind of involved in these really important issues and causes that we're working on, that people feel like they belong, like they're part of this, that there really is a community there for everyone, and how we're being really intentional about making that happen. So, I think it's what's been really exciting for us is not just kind of coming up with the why on our own, but really working with clients to help them come up with their why as well, and a why that makes sense for their organizations and kind of where they are.
Yeah, 100%. And the reason you'll hear us in the coming months, talk more about the business case and probably less about the moral case is not because we don't think that they're important. We really do. We want to talk about the business case because we think the moral case is incredibly important. And because we're fundraisers, our worry is that if we as a sector are not clear about how to have a return on investment for this kind of work, that we will abandon it as a sector. We'll say, oh, we tried that, it didn't work, and or if it's too focused just on, if it's not practical, if it's just focused on doing the right thing, but not also on making, raising money for it. And by the way, we think there's no, those are very compatible things. We see no contradiction between those two things. And we'll be talking about over the next few months, specifically how you can do the right thing and raise money at the same time. But, as you know, Laurel, we're most likely headed into a recession. The economy, it's not great right now for a variety of reasons. And, you and I have been around long enough to know that when things are tough, people default to what they know. And so we think that it's really important that we come up with, a framework and practical ways of doing both, so that this work is adopted by the sector and seen as viable. And we see no contradiction. In fact, that Bloomerang webinar we rolled out was called "It's Not Either Or." You don't have to make a choice between doing DEIB work in your fundraising and raising money. We think it's very additive, and you can raise more money, frankly, doing this work than if you're not doing it. So you and I have had the opportunity to do a lot of work in this area over the last couple of years, and so. I'm curious about what your thoughts are. What have been your big takeaways about applying the DEIB work to fundraising over, from what we've learned working with clients over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think it's, I'm kind of I think we both are lifelong learners. I mean, I don't think either of us are kind of the people who say like, oh, I already know all about this and how to do this. But I think I've even more so in the last couple of years, kind of constantly thinking about, well, why do we do things like that? Or why have we always thought about it like that? And there have been, quite frankly, things that have been part of my own vernacular for 10, 15, 20 years that I'm like, I don't know if I want to talk about it like that anymore, right? And maybe I never did want to talk about it like that, but that was just the way we talked about it, right? And so I think that's been really interesting, is just the kind of reframing of some things. But at the same time, I think one lesson that you and I have learned is that a lot of the principles of what we would have always considered just really good fundraising are also really good DEIB fundraising, right? So thinking about engagement and stewardship and how we're demonstrating impact and how we're aligning impact with the impact that our donors want to see. And so much of this stuff that we've always thought was good fundraising is still good fundraising. And it's less about kind of just changing the way we do everything, but more just about being thoughtful about how we keep the really great stuff and then adjust to the stuff that maybe doesn't feel like it's as aligned with our values. So I think that's been really, really interesting. And just walking aside clients to take, what I think initially has been a lot of really good theories and ideas and principles about what we should be doing, and then making them really practical. And I think that's something you and I, it's really important to us at the Osborne Group, is that we don't just give you theories and ideas, but that we say, and this is how you can do it. And we really work with clients to say, this is what you're going to do to move forward. And this is what the kind of the practical implementation of all of this. So I think it's been just really interesting to think through the theories and the models, but also then think about just the practical implementation of it all.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, I think we've had our thoughts and we've had our theories. I think it's very compatible with what we've done all along. But like you, there's certainly many tactical things that I've rethought. I'm like, that maybe that wasn't the best way to do it, or do we really need to do that, or are we just doing it because that's the way we've always done it. But I think we've had the privilege of the last 2 years of really being able to work with a number of different clients in this area and do really thorough projects, which I think that's been maybe the big difference, is that we've had clients that are very willing to do a deep dive in this area with us, and are willing to resource it and really do the background and the research. And thankfully there is not, I won't say a lot of research on this, because there's not, but there's maybe enough research now that we can start to think about conclusions. And so we've had a chance to kind of test drive some of our own theories. And so what we've come up with, I think, some exciting and workable frameworks that we're going to roll out over the next few months. And we've had an opportunity to develop some tools, and we've had the opportunity to just really, I think, develop some concretes, because I think ultimately that's what we're about as a firm. As you said, we're about practical, we're about concrete, we're about here's what you do to raise money with the DEIB lens, and to do both those things together. And so I'm excited, I think you are too, Laurel, about rolling these out. And that's this video really is just kind of an introduction. This chat is an introduction to that idea, but we will be rolling out over the coming months some real specific thoughts on how you can apply this work, some real specific tools that you can use, some real specific frameworks that you can consider in terms of how you approach this work in your own organization, just for you personally or within your own department. So that's what you can expect from us going forward in this space.
Absolutely. And I think knowing too that we still don't have all the answers, and we probably never will have all the answers, or the answers we thought we had, we change our mind on, or we find some other way to think about it down the road. But I think that's the other big takeaway from all this work that we've been doing, is that it really is a journey. And I think we talk a lot about the DEIB journey, and not just for us, but for the people that we work with, and for all of you out there too, is that it doesn't matter where you are today. It doesn't matter what resources you have today to do this work. Just take the next step. And even if you're not 100% sure that you have all of the answers, just come along on this journey with us, because that's what it's going to take for us to really make change across this sector, is for us to just all recognize that we still have more to learn and a longer way to go, but the only way we're going to move forward is if we just take another step every day. So we invite you to keep up with us on the blog and with the chats and see what we're doing, but we also invite you to just keep in touch with us about what you're doing, what's working, things you're learning, lessons that you've learned, things you've implemented, because again, this is something that we're all figuring out together, and we're just trying to be a little bit better every day. So it's just really exciting.
No, you're absolutely right, and we mean it when we say, like, we're very open to feedback. This is an area that it's a discussion, and we're happy to be part of that discussion, and we're happy to provide whatever insight we can around that. But lots of people have influenced how we think about it. We've always been eclectic, right? We borrow from a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and this is no different, maybe even more so. So yeah, watch this space, and I'm excited about rolling out our thinking, but we love to hear from you and comment and argue with us, and tell us what's working, tell us what's not. That's how we're all gonna get there. So, well, this has been fun, Laurel. I'm looking forward to more chats where we'll get a little bit more specific, but wanted to just kind of intro the subject today, and we'll do some deep dives in the months and weeks to come.
Absolutely.